Hello, my name is Jason Miller, founder of AAspennow Solutions, and we're about to unlock the power of ServiceNow. I'd like to start off by thanking all 3,297 subscribers in over 80 countries globally. If you believe in transferring knowledge to those who need it most, please click subscribe. Your user data will not be transferred to anyone outside of AAspennow without your consent. Hey everyone, how's it going? Just published a video yesterday on 8 reporting features that people forget about in Orlando. Just want to highlight it here, and there's a couple other goodies that I published lately. And today's topic that we're going to be discussing is 10 items to look at on your first day as an admin in Orlando. And what prompted me to talk about this or do a YouTube video on it was that recently had a couple of clients where I had to unbox from scratch new ServiceNow stack or set of instances, a dev prod, and a test environment. And I thought to myself, you know something, this would be great to discuss. Also with the current events around the world, a lot more organizations are going to cloud, so it looks like it's just going to fuel that secular trend of moving things into the cloud. So I compiled at first 5 things, and then the list just kept growing, so I capped it at 10, but there's a bunch of things that if you asked experienced administrators or ServiceNow developers out there that they would do. This was just my take on it because I was guiding a brand new set of customers through this process. And also in the past couple of years, I don't know, 2-3 years, I've taken over work where I didn't have a chance to interact with the previous developer. So that can make things kind of interesting too, and I'm sure there are a lot of developers out there that could comment on their experiences too. So let's start off with high access. So if you have a brand new customer, they might vaguely know what high is. So high is basically where we go to log tickets if we're having a problem with our instance. It's 24/7 support. We can also go in there and look up KB articles, any sort of known errors, trending topics, etc. But the takeaway from this is you want to make sure that you and your customer have a plan for who is going to be calling high if there's a problem. You need to be listed in there. I can tell you from personal experience, if your name is not in there somewhere, that you know, they're going to say, hey, look, we need to get someone on the line. Perfectly valid, right? And if I just logged in recently, and I just took a screenshot of, this is the lower left hand corner, and what you'll see here is all these different lists here of you know, who's the primary support contact versus technical contacts, and you know, who gets the communications and notifications, etc. This is something you want to work out on your first excuse me, sorry about that, didn't mean to flip that slide. This is something you want to work out pretty much on your first day, I would say, and say, look, you know, probably your most tactically experienced individual needs to be in there and high, so that way they can talk to the people at ServiceNow. Moving on, after you work that out, you're going to want to define who your admins are and also your security admins. And I think that the second part is worth noting, because remember that, you know, like if you need to do stuff with ACLs, there's some stuff where you have to elevate your roles to security admin. And when you start out with that system administrator, that's going to be the only secure sec admin that you're going to have in there. So that sec admin, the system admin will have that sec admin role. So if we take just a user here that we create, and let's just say Jimi Hendrix is going to be our admin, one thing we're going to want to do is, you know, we'll click into the user's profile. Now, how do we get to this user? We're going to type in users right here. We'll see it under system security or user administration. I have both starred right here. Pull up the individual's name. Then we can go into the profile, and then we're going to want to give them roles. So I'm going to hit edit here on the roles related list, and your related list setup might be a little bit different. And then I'm going to give him admin and sec admin. Now you're probably going to say, well, didn't you forget to do something? At least the more experienced people will say that, and yes, I did, and I did that on purpose. So I'm going to give him admin, And now I'm going to go to security admin, and now we'll click save. And we'll wait for that to come up. It's going to give us a whole bunch of business rule notifications there, and we're going to have a whole host of roles here. And now let's scroll down, and we're going to notice that sec admin is not here, or security admin isn't there. Why isn't it there? Because you have to elevate your role in order to do that. So I have security admin or sec admin. The way I know that is that elevate roles is right here underneath my name. I'm going to click on the sec admin. I'll click OK. Now I'm going to go back over to Jimmy's list here for the roles. And now we'll hit edit. And this happens all the time where someone will come to me and say, you know, I gave so-and-so sec admin, but it's not coming through. Or sometimes it won't show up at all. And yeah, you just have to elevate your role there. So my apologies that the instance is taking a little bit here. But as you can tell, I have a couple of different tabs open. So let's type in sec admin. Let's give them the role. And we'll hit save. And now we'll scroll down in our list. We'll wait for this to load down here. And we'll see if we can find sec admin. And sure enough, it is right here. Fantastic. Okay. Very good. So now that we've given our admins what they need in terms of their roles, we are going to create update sets for our admins. Now, my personal opinion on this is I don't care what environment you're on. Like when you first start out, you're only going to have your development environment. If you're really moving at a good pace, maybe you can get through dev, test, and prod in terms of setting up who is going to have the admin roles. And you know, best practice isn't to give admin to everyone in each of the instances, meaning dev, test, and prod. Meaning don't give them the keys to the entire kingdom. But I have been in operations, very advanced operations, where we're doing solely custom applications, where all of us had admin and sec admin in all three of the stack. Now, some people would say that's nuts, but you know, when you're working in a very high-paced environment with very, very experienced developers, you know, sometimes that's the way it rolls, right? So in order to set up our local update sets, you can type in cal space update, or you can do L space update, and then local update sets will come up. You'll see something like this. You'll notice the new button. When you click on new, it'll bring you into a screen like this. I already have it set up so that way we don't have to burn a lot of time here. Now I'm going to click submit and make current, and now watch our update set picker right here. We'll hit submit and make current, and now when we make it current, what will happen is it'll run this business rule and it'll change it to that update set. Now you're probably saying, hey look Jason, I don't have that on my screen. Great point. If you don't have the update set picker on your screen, which you won't initially, you're going to come down here to developer. You're going to click on this one for the application picker, but then this one for the update set picker. And the difference between the two is that this one right here is your application picker, and then this one here is your update set picker. When you click on this page, it will take you to the update set itself. In your related list right here, you're going to have your customer updates, and whatever updates that I make will be listed here. And then here is a list of all of the update sets. When I create update sets, generally I'm going to put my initials, and then I'm going to put the substance of what I'm doing right here. So this one is going to correspond with, I don't know, the video topic, right? So 10 admin items that you should know on your first day. The next thing that we'll do is we'll take a look at role allocation. Now, I'm going to look at role allocation if I'm taking over for someone else, because there are going to be times when you know, in your career that we have to take over for someone else, and you will not, you know, ever have communicated with them, and sometimes that's just the way it is for different reasons. Look, I'm not saying that they got fired or anything, or that, you know, the organization doesn't want you to have contact with them, but that could certainly be a possibility, and I've been in both of those situations. So you're going to come right in here, you'll type in allocate or allocat, whatever, right here like I have filtered, or if you want to do the entirety of it, you can role allocation. Again, I made this a favorite. It'll bring you into a list like this. It's a report, right? So you're going to be in this report. It's out of the box. It's going to tell you, you'll probably want to focus on the admin ones and see who's got admin, and then also who's got sec admin. You can open up this list just by clicking on one of these little chevrons next to it, and it'll tell you the names and everything. And you know, a lot of times I'll ask you like, hey, who's got which roles, right? So this is where you would find that information out of the box. Pretty handy report. Good to review every once in a while. Probably the next thing you'll want to do, and maybe even before that role allocation report, will be to go into your instance security dashboard. Well, you will perform what is called instance hardening. So if you haven't been through instance hardening, sorry about that extra tab there. Oh, you know what? I know I had that tab there. Here, let me move this over here. Instance hardening is just making sure that your instance is secure. You want to make sure you don't have a low score like this, the 78% right here. In order to get to the instance or the security dashboard, security, I type in CE sec, and it says here, right here, Instance Security Center, and it'll bring up that dashboard. And then what you'll do is click on this number right here. Kind of looks like a performance analytics setup, doesn't it? And that's pretty much what it is. You're gonna see here, my list is kind of messed up. I have like these breakdowns here or whatever by day, I think. I was messing around with something. You probably won't have that. What you'll have is at the very bottom here, you're gonna see what's compliant and you're gonna see what's not compliant. One thing you're gonna wanna kind of be careful of is, like, you see how I scroll here? If you scroll here, it'll change this number throughout the timeline. So I'm going to click on the 5 right here. It's going to bring up the list of the 5. It'll probably bring up the additional ones, but you see right here today, 4 plus 1, that would be our 5. I can click on the number 4, and then it's going to bring me into this Analytics Hub layout, and then we're going to see our 4 appear. After we click, give me 1 second here, and my apologies for it being a little bit slow. I try to set a lot of this stuff up so that way we wouldn't have to sit here and muddle through it. But if I click on show records, we'll see here are 4 items. Now, one of the great things about this is that if we click into one of them, it's going to tell us the steps and everything that needs to occur. This one, like disable entity expansion, it's going to tell us what to do. So even if you're not a hardcore developer, or this is your first time, all you really have to do is click on configure. Come in here. Well, I'm getting record not found for whatever reason for that one, but I could probably try another one here. We'll see if it does the same thing. Click on configure. Now, if I can't find it, what I can do is I can go to the sys property list, these sys underscore properties. I can look it up by the name, and then I can do whatever it is that it's telling me to do. So I think for this one, it wants me just to change this to true, and we'll hit update. Then I can go back to the list right here. We'll see if it updates, and I'll update, I'll refresh the page, and then I'm going to come down to our little performance analytics indicator. And then sometimes, at least what I experienced past couple of months when I was doing this setup, was that it didn't change the score immediately. I had to hit refresh, and we'll see if it does that. If not, no big deal. We can move on. But basically, your goal is going to be to make sure that all the mandatory ones are knocked out. So if we take a look at that list again, it'll break it out into 3. And we'll just give it 1 second here to refresh this thing. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's moving the number up based on that. We'll see if the same number is there. And we'll come into hardening again. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Alright, so let's take a look here. So it looks like I only have 4 non-compliant. That's wonderful. And again, I would click on and see how when I moved it back a couple of days, it went back to 5. This is what I was talking about. So Just make sure if you're presenting it to someone that you're not doing that. They're like, whoa, we're still not compliant. You know, you have 4 right here. So just remember that you're going to have 3 here, mandatory, 3, I guess, tranches, if you will. You're going to have your mandatory, recommended, and optional. My goal has always been to have this 100%, this, you know, 95%, and probably this around 90-95%. But it's just going to depend on your customer's preferences. So just keep that in mind. Then the next thing is, you know, you're going to want to set up your update sources, and I call it Retrieval for short. But basically, if we go in here and we type in eSources, if you haven't done this before, you know, this might be new to you. I know that there's a lot of developers that like to move their update sets just by exporting into XML. I'll be frank with you. I like setting up Retrieval because I don't want to have a lot of XML crap on my machine because it makes it run really slow over time. So if I were to click in this test instance, this will show you how to set one of these up basically. So if you click new, let's just back up 1 second. If I click new, it'll bring up a screen like this. You'll type in the name of the instance. You're going to tell it, like, is it development, test, or production? You'll put in the URL, and then you want to do the username or password to this one here, not the one that you're currently in, but to this one on the URL. And let me tell you something, you're probably going to want to do this with someone else on a screen share when you're setting it up. The reason why is because if for some reason the password doesn't take, it's going to lock you out of this instance right here. And that's happened to me before also. A couple other things about this screen. Again, this is your import from update set from XML. A lot of developers, they like to just import it manually. I don't really agree with that. I like to just do the retrieval because then you can run the preview automatically, and it will bring everybody's update set in at one time. But you know, just it's your organizational preference, right? Here's where you would run the retrieval. If I try to do it now, it's going to give me an error because that URL doesn't exist anymore. And also, I added a couple numbers in there, so that way we had a fake host basically. Then later on down the line, you might get asked by management, say something like, you know, like our configurations are off. We need to see what's going on between the 2 instances because we want to achieve some sort of data sync. Just remember that there's a difference between, you know, configuration and data, right? Configurations are things like, you know, when you do a business rule, client script, whatever, something's captured in an update set. And then pure data is stuff like, you know, user profiles or records that are created in the incident table, things of that nature. So you can run this compared to local instance, and I think I had an extra slide or two somewhere, maybe it was back here, that can show us. Yeah, let's see if I have a supporting slide. I do. So when you run the compare to local instance, you're going to see something like this happening where it says process blah 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 versions, and then you're going to be brought into a screen, and then the header, there's going to be the information for the instance, and then down here it's going to tell you a number of on the remote and not local, and then on local and not on remote. So kind of handy, you know, because sometimes they'll ask you that stuff and it'll catch you off guard and you'll be like, well, I don't know really how to get that number. That's how you would do it. So you would go to like your production instance, because generally they're going to want to know what's going on in prod versus the other environments. But if you think about it, let's say you create something that the customer wanted, like a client script, then later on they say they don't want it. I can tell if I worked on something for a while, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to mark it inactive. I'm not going to carry it up the update set. I'll probably, or up the stack via update set. I might put in the default profile, but if there hasn't been a downstream clone to go ahead and nuke that thing, then, you know, it's going to be sitting there. There will be a difference between the stacks. So if you didn't catch all that, don't worry about it. Just ignore that part. We'll move on to the SYS ID Data Sync. Now, one thing I like to check is whether especially the users and the groups are the same from between dev, test, and production. Now, I'll note again, some customers, they don't want production data down in dev or in test for whatever reason. However, I will say this, like your testing gets infinitely harder because you're constantly using test users. You're going to have to impersonate them. There's just a whole host of issues that can happen. So one thing I like to do is, like we have our Jimi Hendrix profile here. I'm going to be in the instance, the lower sub-production instance like dev or test. I'm going to right click right here on our user. I'm going to copy the SYS ID. Then I'm going to go over to test or prod or another instance. I'm going to find the same user. First thing I'm going to do is take the one that I cut and pasted, or excuse me, cut from dev, and I'm going to paste it right here in prod. And I'm just going to take a look at like the last 4 or 5, like 1996 right here. Then when I go into prod and I find the same user, I'm going to right click and copy the SYS ID. Then I'm going to paste it in another field and just spot check. That's all it is. You don't have to do it for every user, but I'm going to pick out a couple of users and a couple of groups and just make sure. When you're creating data, right, like users and groups, you're going to want to do it, you know, either in dev or prod. Depends on how your organization works. But if you think about LDAP, right, I always go back to LDAP. If you're going to do an Active Directory integration with ServiceNow, where does that reside? Generally, it's going to reside in production. So that's where you're going to create your users. So you just want to make sure that your users have there's data sync between the environments if you can help it. If your customer doesn't want it, you know, you don't need to fight them on it, but this is one thing to look at to make sure that you have data sync. You don't want to go in there, create a user here, hit new, create Jimi Hendrix, and then go into your production instance and then create another one if you're trying to achieve data sync. I hope all that made sense. I don't know why I had the SLA definitions up here. I think it was to prove that if we were, how SYS IDs work with like groups and stuff. And basically the key is like if you want to make sure or just show your customer how SYS ID works, one thing you can do is go into, you know, like an SLA definition or something like that. Let's do it in like human resources. Maybe that'll be a good one. Well, I'm already in this one. It looks like it's underpinning contract. But what I like to do is just go in here, put in the start condition. Oh, see, like assignment group is whatever. Here it has empty, but maybe we can put an assignment group in there. And let me see if I can find like an Aspen group. There we go. And now I'm going to save this, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my scope because I think that's in global. I'm just going to pick a random scope like change management. Because this one, I believe, I don't think I have the app scope up here, but I'm going to reload the form. Now watch what happens down here to condition builder. So condition builder is going to tell us a whole bunch of stuff that's going on, but typically what will happen is we'll see some sort of like SYS ID action going on down here, and you can show them that like, hey, look, it's using the SYS ID. So that's one thing to consider there. But SYS ID and data sync, that's very important. That's a very important concept to understand there. Okay, email properties. So this is one that can really make you look bad if you don't know what you're doing. So you'll find email properties. You just type in email, scroll all the way to the bottom. You'll see here system properties. Here's where your email properties reside. You're going to see here email sending enabled, email receiving enabled. This is where we turn on the functionality for the instance to send and receive email. Now just remember that, and I'm going to show you in a second, another one of my slides coming up here is going to show us how we can prevent us from hurting ourselves. One thing I wanted to note though before we move on from that is our email accounts link right here. So if you click on this, it's going to take you to a screen like this. This is where you can set your email account up. I put in here AAspennow Solutions. You can put the from right here, whatever it is that you want, that your organization wants set up in terms of their user label, etc. Before you hit save, remember, if you take away nothing from today, take this away. before you check this box, especially the sending part, you want to do one thing, and that is you want to check the outbox. I can tell you, this is many moons ago. Someone just hit the checkbox and they hit save. Wonderful. They didn't know what was going on. Well, I can tell you, they didn't check the outbox, because in the outbox there was 50,000 email messages that were marked ready. So that's what you want to do, is you want to type in outbox here and click on this link. You're going to filter for all the ones that are ready. Now, if you're in a sub-production environment, you just want to get rid of all that crap. A lot of times you'll change it to a different status. I think there's like ignore or something like that. Yeah, ignore that we can put it into. I generally get rid of them because it's all test data anyway, and I don't want it mucking things up. But anyway, they were impersonating the CIO and using that as the email person, and then they opened up the outbox. You know, it's just continuing on that story many moons ago. And yeah, there were like 50,000 emails that got sent out, just killed that server, you know, the Outlook server. So just remember, check that outbox, right? And then, you know, if you're coming into, and this isn't day one stuff necessarily, this is day one if you're taking over for someone else, go check those update sets in prod. And what I mean by that is you want to go to local update sets. You want to find all the ones that are complete that are not a default set, right? So the default set is obviously the one that that's the main update set that's out there, that out of the box. You know, I also refer to it as kind of like the trash bin. If there are any updates that I want to bring up the stack, I'm going to go ahead and throw those updates in there. So I have here the application global. These are all the update sets that I've moved into the instance from a remote instance, and they are marked completed. And what I'm going to do is mark it ignore. Now this is only for the ones that are in production. Remember, we have to be in the production environment. We have to commit it. It's going to be marked complete, and then at that point it will mark it ignore. So remember, it's after you commit it in production. And you know, write that on the chalkboard 10 times or however you want to remember that, and then you want to mark it ignore. The reason why is because later on when you're doing cloning or downstream clones from your production instance down to the sub-production instances, it's going to make a difference, huge impact in terms of the amount of time it takes to clone that instance. Basically, you don't want all that garbage coming back down at you, is the gist of it. You don't believe me on that one? Go take a look at the ServiceNow documentation. I can tell you it's the third bullet point from the bottom on the update sets page in the ServiceNow documentation. Pretty helpful little tip there. So let's just review today what we went over. High access, who's going to get what in high or listed there, so that way you can contact ServiceNow support. Who are going to be our admins or security admins. Set up our update sets for our admins, especially for the people that don't have any experience. Want to make sure that we capture all the configuration changes, especially if they don't know what they're doing. If they create something by accident that's detrimental, we can go to that update set and then, you know, go take action on it. I don't know why I had this twice here. Role allocation was the report that we wanted to look at. The instance security dashboard. We want to take a look at setting up retrieval, our email properties. We want to check the outbox, and then lastly, when we finally get stuff into production, or if we take over an operation for someone else, we want to take a gander of prod, mark everything that was completed to ignore, so that way when we do our downstream clone later on, it doesn't come back at us. Know that a lot of you are probably experienced admins watching this, but if you did learn something, please click like. My name is Jason Miller, founder of AAspennow Solutions, and we just unlocked the power of ServiceNow.